Yesterday it was announced that a new apostle of the Lord has been ordained in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he's the youngest to be ordained since David A. Bednar back in 1994. And we're going to learn all about him from one of his employees as well from the church education system. Stay tuned to see who that is. And also we're going to take a look at the new tactics that ex-Mormons are using to try and discredit the Book of Mormon, and they are, for lack of a better term, laughable. All this and more. My name is Jackson Wayne Paul, and welcome to Latter Daily Saints.
What power shall stay the heavens from pouring down knowledge from heaven upon the heads of the Latter-day Saints?
Ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely excited for today's episode because we have a guest that is just one of the best guys that you've ever met in your entire life. And many of you who have signed up for our church history tour happening in July are going to meet him and get to know him pretty well during that, because he is our illustrious guide, and that is Dr. Michael Day. Welcome to the studio.
Hey, it's good to be here. I just called you Hayden.
Oh,
it's good to be here, Jackson. No, seriously. You're awesome. You're coming too, aren't you?
Yes, of course.
Oh,
so
it's
Brandon.
Oh, that's going to be great. This is my first time being on Latter Daily Saints. I've seen a couple episodes. You like to talk about stuff that's happening like right now, right?
Yeah.
Jackson? Okay.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we don't avoid any controversial topics at all. So help us understand your thoughts on abortion. No,
Okay. Yeah, no, really.
That's not our topic
Abortion, yeah.
Okay. Wow. But we have talked about it multiple times on the podcast.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. It's the sacrament of Satan. But we won't go into it. Link in the description for the episodes we've done on that. But here on Latter Daily Saints, Mike, to keep you informed, all right, over the last week, we've had some pretty heavy topics, some pretty interesting topics that are very important to talk about, but they're not the most joyous ones. Today, though, I brought you on because something joyous happened yesterday that coincides with what we read in the New Testament. And as you know, Mr. Mike, when it comes to the Bible, homie knows his stuff. So I'm curious, are you great with like memorizing scriptures or stuff like that? You're a big notes guy.
Here's the thing. For me, I can remember like where it is on the page, the general gist. I have some passages memorized.
Okay.
But the older I get, the more that memory just fades. But are you talking about the Acts 1 when they have the apostles' vacancy and they have to fill it? Is that what you're referring to?
That would be a good one.
Is that where you were headed?
One thing that I was just going to highlight on is Ephesians 2:20.
Oh, okay. Is that with the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone?
You're a
Something
beast.
like that?
You're a beast. What it says is, we'll start actually in verse 19. It says, "Now therefore ye are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom all the building fitly framed together groweth unto an holy temple in the Lord, in whom ye also are builded together for an habitation of God through the Spirit." But also, yes. So help us understand a little bit, like the little elevator pitch. Judas, he makes some unfortunate decisions.
Yeah.
Right? Someone had to do it, honestly. There's a lot that could be said about that. But so Judas makes some unfortunate decisions. He realizes, dang, I made some mistakes. Commits, kills himself. And then we have a vacancy, right? How do they go about filling that?
Yeah, so they go, and what they're looking for is somebody who was, I think it says, witnesses with us in the resurrection, I believe is the language that they use. And they're looking for somebody who knows Jesus, but was with us. So that's verse 8. He says, basically,
Acts chapter what?
Acts chapter 1, verse 8. He's looking at that's where Jesus says, "You will witness of me." Where is it that they fill it? Let's see. I want to make sure I'm in the right spot. Okay, there it is, verse 22.
Okay.
So they say, they talk about who are we going to pick, and then they say, well, someone in verse 22, beginning from the baptism of John unto the same day that he was taken from us, must be one who ordained who's a witness with us of his resurrection. And so they picked two guys, and then they cast lots. And verse 26 says that the lot fell upon Matthias, and he was numbered. Now think about this: if you're the fellow named Joseph, surnamed or called Barsabas, what a good deal. You're worthy to be an apostle, but they don't make you do the work. So that's kind of a good deal. Because if you think about this, these apostles their plate was full. They had to really go out and do these things. And if you think about Elder Gilbert, 55 years old, the rest of his life, he's going to be a special witness for Jesus and 100% going to be out doing the Lord's work. I think they get Julys off. They have some time with family, but this is not going to be hanging out with your grandkids. This is going to be out doing the work, traveling, flying coach, and this is a guy who's, done a lot of things, and he's going to be now in a new phase of his life till the day he dies.
Yeah. This isn't Kenneth Copeland style with his 2 private jets. Okay. This is talking knees against the seat in front of you.
Yeah, you're definitely out doing the work, and
maybe, I don't know.
And we've all had, I know you have had experiences. You hear the 12 and they come teach. There's a special spirit that attends their witness of the Savior, and it's always wonderful for me to sit in a room where there's people gathered, some of them making great sacrifice to sit at their feet and listen. And it's been special in my lifetime living in Utah. I wasn't raised in Utah, but coming to Utah and having some maybe experiences that not everybody in the church has. Some people in their whole life will meet an apostle maybe one time.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a wonderful thing. And I'm excited for him. Like I said, I'm excited for him, but I think, what a job.
A lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Brando, if you just want to pull up the church newsroom link here, it says Elder Clark G. Gilbert, called as church's new apostle. It says the former BYU Idaho president has been a General Authority 70 since April 2021 and currently is church commissioner of education. Wouldn't that technically make him your boss?
Yeah. So he was over church education. I don't know if it's like my connection to him because I've never hung out with him.
Yeah.
But for a number of years, I worked for BYU Pathways, and he was in charge of that. And one thing I want to say, and he mentions it here in some of these articles, I think it's in the newsroom article too. He talks about the importance of education, and he didn't separate discipleship, following Jesus, from being educated. And that was the spirit that I felt working with Pathways. What BYU Pathways is, if your audience is not aware, is we make college education accessible to people in remote areas, and maybe they don't have access to a brick and mortar school, but they can get a college education, and they get experts in different fields teaching things. And I was blessed to be able to teach religion. And I remember at one class I had people from Africa, people from areas that had no access to education, and they all expressed great gratitude that it would change literally their life to get a bachelor's degree. One fellow even mentioned, he said in his village in Africa, it would like change the DNA of his family. They'd be able to have radically different job opportunities, and it would change his community. And I think a lot about that with what the church is trying to do. We're not just out preaching Jesus, but we're also trying to upgrade people's ability to live life and to contribute to the kingdom and those kinds of things. And education is an important part of that.
Oh yeah, we've talked about this on the channel before with the alarming statistics of kids not meeting their reading grade level in Utah. Only about 50% of kids are doing that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we did a whole episode on it. And going into the Doctrine and Covenants, when it talks about how he who basically does the work to acquire intelligence in this life will have that much more of an advantage in the life to come.
Yeah.
And that to be able to do what you are doing, you need to be educated, like to be able to read these different texts and do this type of research and really make sense of it all.
You have to have access to teachers.
Yeah.
Like, because some people want to learn, but they're like, I don't have a teacher. So think about what Pathways has done. It's made it so church education is more global. You don't have to go to Rick's or BYU Idaho or BYU Provo, but you have access to a good education and wherever you live.
Yeah. If you know anything that we do with Mike Day, we're always going down dirt roads. So I read the title of the article. I haven't gotten much into it yet. But basically, I'll just say here, Elder Clark G. Gilbert is the newest member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of Jesus of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It says Elder Gilbert's call by the church president, Dallin H. Oaks, was announced Thursday, February 12th, yesterday. And he basically was called to fill the spot that was left vacated by Jeffrey R. Holland.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. And if you haven't watched our live stream that we did with Colton Miller and Dustin, space on his last name, we just kind of went through some of his best hits, Jeffrey R. Holland. We'll link that in the description as well. But if you want to scroll down here, Brando, Yeah, it said, let's see. It said Elder Gilbert, 55, was born in Oakland, California, and spent most of his childhood in Phoenix, Arizona. He has served as a general authority since April 2021. And like we talked about, he was Mike's boss. And then he says he and his wife, Sister Christine Gilbert, were married in the Salt Lake Temple in 1994. They are the parents of 8 children. Wow. Wow. Yeah. So he probably has a lot of grandkids that it's going to be tough to find.
It's super interesting because he was married the same year I was married.
Yeah.
We're roughly the same age. And my wife, Sonia, and I have had 4 children, and we had our hands full going to different practices and going to all their activities. And as I was reading and learning more, I did not know he had 8. I just thought, how do you do that? And I think a lot of that is due to his wife, Christine, and her great effort because we know as men, you can't be there sometimes. And so what a great sacrifice. What a great team. Like
That's
I said,
why he's the apostle and you're...
Yeah, exactly. I've never met him, but I'm just thinking, man, respect. 8 kids. That's something.
Also, he's 55. Like, that's my parents' age as well. And so if you're having 8 kids, it's likely that the age of his kids, like, he may still have some that are at home. That's I'd be curious to know that. But if we scroll down a little bit more, it kind of shows more of his background of education and career. It says Elder Gilbert received a bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University in international relations in 1994, followed by a master's degree at Stanford in Eastern Asian Studies in 1995, and a doctorate at Harvard in business administration in 2001.
No slouch.
Yeah, he later joined Harvard's faculty, so was a professor there. Then it says Elder Kim B. Clark, now an emeritus general authority, was Elder Gilbert's colleague and mentor at Harvard and became president of BYU Idaho. He invited the Gilberts to come to Rexbury, Idaho University with the challenge to help us rethink church education on a global scale. It says after his initial employment at BYU Idaho, he filled assignments as CEO of Deseret Digital Media in 2009, president of Deseret News in 2010, interesting, president of BYU Idaho in 2015, and the inaugural president of the global online offering known as BYU Pathway Worldwide 2017 before his full-time call to church service. Goodness gracious, he's done quite a bit here.
Heavily involved in education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is really awesome to see, and I was curious, and I wanted to say this when we did the episode talking about the new French apostle, like, and I'm just curious to get your thoughts on this, okay? If you don't have a strong opinion, it's fine. But it's interesting to see how we see in the Doctrine and Covenants that, for example, the founding of America and the Revolutionary War and everything that led up to religious freedom being had in the United States, and then how we see the revelations in the Doctrine and Covenants in regards to the Constitution of the United States. I was curious with the calling of a French apostle. I'm like, what would it be if we got to a point where, like, all of the apostles like had come from different places other than the United States, like where we have in our hymn book in the United States, like the Star Spangled Banner and things like that. Do you have any sort of thoughts on that? I just was curious. Like,
I know that there's some people that really push for like a global representation. And I remember one time, and I don't remember who made the argument, but they said the apostles represent the Lord to the church and the Lord to the world.
Yeah.
And they're not a reflection of the world.
Yeah.
And so wherever they are from, the real question is, were they called of God? And that's the real question. And everyone has to come to that personal testimony on their own. I love the bit in the Book of Mormon when Jesus brings the 12 and they're around him, and then the fire encircles the 12.
Yeah.
And if you do a careful reading of that text, the Savior's sending a message, hey, these are my guys. And if you listen to their words, he doesn't say this, but I am, they'll lead you in the way of life and salvation. They'll take you the right way. And if you think about this, Jesus then sends them out and they echo his message, because there's so many people, they echo his message that he taught. And I think about that a lot, that the 12, in my estimation, echo the message of Jesus Christ to the people at that time. Yeah. And so I don't know what's in store for Elder Clark, but I do know this, the Lord knows. And his skill set will be used just like Elder Oaks' skill set is going to be used right now. So it'll be interesting to see. people ask me all the time, what's going to happen in this? And I always say, guys, don't ask me. I'm the last guy when it comes to predicting anything, but I know that the Lord's at the helm. So that's that big picture, because, some people want, we want a person for, everyone, go social media. We want this guy. We want that guy, right?
When Elder Suarez got called.
Yes.
It's like, finally, the Brazilians, we know that we'll be let into the celestial kingdom because we have an apostle now.
Yeah. And I get it. Like even with my kids follow the NBA, and they really love the global reach of the NBA. And as different players hit the NBA from different countries, it gets the excitement of that country. Look, we've got a Serbian. Look, we've got a Brazilian, right? And it is exciting. But if we just pause and just go, it's the Lord's kingdom. Yeah. We only have 12 apostles. We have way more than 12 countries, right? Yeah. So it is what it is. I say that
because it's interesting. It is a global church, but it was, the United States was the place it was founded. Obviously, we see how the Revelations and Doctrine and Covenants talk so highly of the Constitution of the United States being inspired.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. It's just a thought that I had. But
the idea that the principle, like Section 98 and 101, I think one of those two talks about it, but the principles and the things that the Constitution teach belong to all flesh. Yeah. It doesn't need to mean that we need to make Iraq and Iran the U.S. style of government, but the principles of the Constitution, I think, are what really matters. In other words, the individual matters, right? Yeah. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things the Constitution says, but that's a different Latter-day Saints episode.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get a constitutional scholar on here and they'll talk about that.
We'll see. Now I'm curious, if Jesus, if the second coming doesn't happen in my lifetime, to see, the bios of some Gen Z apostles getting called, like they were a TikTok influencer or whatever for the church, and
Jackson, you're getting old when the apostles being called at your age, and I'm officially old now.
I know.
And by the way, Elder Gilbert has way cooler hair than I have. I look like I could be his dad with my white hair. Yeah, so anyway, yeah.
Anyways, so exciting things to come. Very cool to see this. It seems that though he has a lot of experience in service and education and ministering, and so super cool to see kind of what his tenure looks like as an apostle of the Lord. But we will wait and see.
The Lord is going to put him to work. I'll say that.
Yeah, he will. But anyways, Mike, this isn't going to be a super long episode, but there's one video I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, okay? The ex-Mormon community are getting really creative in their teaching of Scripture and their efforts to try to discredit the Book of Mormon. Really interesting tactics here. But the way in which she teaches was just so good that from this video that we're going to watch, that it just reminded me exactly how you teach the Scriptures. Like, one-for-one swap, honestly. So we're going to watch this video here. Brandon, can you just turn? Yeah. So I know it's small for you, but we're going to watch this. Listen to the way in which she teaches and how she feels like this discredits the Book of Mormon. And then we're going to have a little chat. All right?
I'm going to teach you about a character that's a real person in the Book of Mormon. Okay. So there is this guy, and his name is Nephi, and he is the youngest brother. They are living out in the wilderness. His dad tells him and his brothers that they need to go back to the city and they need to get these gold plates. And they go to the city and they find Laban. They ask very nicely and they're like, hey, can we have the gold plates? And Laban's like, absolutely not. Then they're like, hey, how about we give you this gold in exchange for the gold plates? Like, that sounds fair, right? So they're trading, bartering, and Laban's like, no, absolutely not. He gets really upset and he sends his guards to kill them. And he doesn't give them back their gold. They run back to their dad. And Nephi's like, dude, we got to go back. Like, God said we have to go back and go get these plates. His brothers are scared. They're cowards. So they stay with their dad. The youngest brother, Nephi, he goes back into the city, finds Laban, and Laban is passed out, drunk. And right next to him is a sword. God appeared to Nephi and told Nephi that, in the name of God, he needs to cut off Laban's head.
What?
Yeah. Nephi picks up Laban's sword and he cuts off his head with his own sword.
Night.
He runs into the servant and the servant's like, hey, you're not Laban. And he's like, shh, you know what? We're just doing God's work here. And then he grabs the gold plates and he runs back to his family. And then they're like, yay, hero. What do you think? Do you believe it?
Yeah. I don't believe it at all.
You don't believe it at all? Why?
It's unbelievable.
Interesting. From the mouth of a child. I'm going to teach her.
Okay. That settles it. Super interesting.
What do you think is interesting about it?
Well, I mean, I don't even know. I didn't know what direction we were going with this. But, there's one thing to kind of tell the story, because there were some things she got wrong. There were some things she got right. But sometimes just let the text speak for itself. And I don't know.
Well, let me tell you a story, Mike.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story about this guy who he lives a perfect life.
Yeah.
He does nothing wrong ever. Okay. And he lives till the age of like 33.
Okay.
Okay. And then at the age of 33, he makes so many people mad that they nail him
and they kill him
a cross and they kill him.
Yeah.
And then they put him in a tomb and he's dead for 3 days.
Yeah.
And he comes back to life.
Yeah.
And he atones for the sins of every single person that ever lived and will ever live. Do you believe it?
Yeah. I
imagine teaching that to a kid.
It's a super interesting argument. And I don't remember which book it's in, but Jackson, there's this chapter in a book, and Dave will tell me, I don't remember, but it's called How to Write an Anti-Mormon Book or How to Write an Anti-Mormon Pamphlet. Hugh Nibley wrote it. Yeah. And in it, he wrote this, a super interesting argument. He says, people will tell the story of the first vision, but what they will never do is let Joseph tell the story. They will never, they might give you a line here or there that they'll quote, but they're going to own the narrative and they're going to tell the story. But he said, why won't they just let Joseph tell the story? Why not just include bunch of verses from Joseph Smith history and let him tell it? And his argument is essentially, well, they want to own the narrative. They want to control the tone and the tenor. And that's really what I see her doing. She's telling the story the way with the tone and the inflection. Of course, it's a video. I'm sure it gets 1 million hits on TikTok.
Yeah.
But if you just read the story and let the story do the talking, I think there's a difference there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and just her basic argument is like, oh, I explained to you this story that's in the scriptures that is a miracle, right? And a child doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
If a child doesn't believe it, you think, these stories are reasonable to believe? It's like you could do this type of expose storytelling with any story in the scriptures.
Yeah. I mean, not to be over the top, but if you were to describe, this is how you were made. This is how you came into this earth. And now we're going to watch it on video of your birth. Like a child would be like, that's horrific. I can't possibly believe that. Yeah. And yet sometimes the truth or history, let me tell you about one of your ancestors that did this thing that could be either horrible or too great. It could be unbelievable. And so sometimes the truth, when it's manifest in its full aspect, can be too much. A great person once wrote, truth must be given gradually or else all men would go blind. Like light, we give it bit by bit. And I think that the narrative in these first chapters of Nephi are written in the way that Nephi intended them to be read. And I do realize that that's pretty harsh. Like this guy gets his head cut off. I was actually on my mission one time, and this lady, she was a great lady. We ended up baptizing her, but she called me after she read that, and she said, I don't know if I can believe the Book of Mormon. And I said, why? And she said, you have a man of God cutting off a guy's head. And my first thought was, I said, well, have you read the Bible? And she said, yeah. And I said, tell me about King David, right? And she said, oh, and she talked like her understanding of King David. And then I took her to the narrative, because we always read it with the sling. Yeah. But what else happens? They took his head off, right? And I took her to that bit, and I said, now I know this is difficult, but this is several hundred years before Jesus, and they didn't have an issue with it. I'm not saying you need to do it, but maybe we need to read it with that same kind of lens. And long story short, she finished the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
And to her, she did gain a testimony of it. I don't fully understand it because we live in our time period, right? And that's a little bit difficult. Anyway, this is a really easy one to pick apart. But man, can you imagine if she did that with 2 Nephi 9 or Alma 32?
Or any story in the Bible.
Yeah, just let Alma read Alma 32. Don't give me there was this guy and he was talking about a seed and he compared it to a word. No, just read it and let the Spirit teach you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Mike. Brando, for real quick, just click on her main page and then go to her first.
Is she a TikToker?
Yeah, so this is Blame It on Mel DeGroot. Okay, if we click on our first pinned thing, I think you're really going to like her content. Okay, it says, her caption is, anyone else find life outside the Mormon church hits differently in the best way? I was a mom raising 5 kids. Now I talk about sex, scandals, and secrets that were never supposed to see daylight. No gatekeeping, no shame, just blame it on Mel.
That's a great way to get clicks. If I use those words, and by the way, a classic, one of my friends, Jared Halverson, did his PhD in this anti-religious rhetoric, and literally she's pulling the playbook, the textbook playbook of how to be and create anti-religious rhetoric. Everything in that header is how you do it. Yeah. And what is she doing, in my opinion? Is she really after truth or is she after clicks? And I'm throwing that out there. I don't know her, but she's definitely drawing from the playbook there.
Yeah. Let us all collectively pray for Mel DeGroot, okay? Because it seems as though a mess of pottage is being traded for. So I don't know. May God bless you, Mel, and I hope that you seek. I hope you find what you're truly seeking, okay? Whatever that may be. But Mike, thanks for coming on this a little bit shorter episode today. We're grateful for everything that you've done on the Stick of Joseph. We are we took a little break to film this for today's episode, but he came into the studio today because we're doing probably what's going to be a 5-hour-long expose on the Great Apostasy. And we've done 2 hours thus far, and I blinked and it was already 2 hours. So it's very intriguing. Check out Mike's stuff. On Talking Scripture as well. He has his own Come Follow Me podcast with Brother Bryce Dunford.
Oh, we're going to Turkey too. We got a couple slots. If you want to come to Turkey, we're going to talk about Christian history. We're going there this summer. Dave Butler and I are going to go to Israel, and I think there might be a couple slots left on that one too. I know church history is sold out, but if you want to talk about ancient Christian history, we're doing Turkey, which is going to be awesome. And like I said, Israel. And like I said, there's a couple slots open. If anybody is like, hey, let's go, giddy up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Would highly recommend. Any time that I have to be around Mike Day, I cherish it immensely. So, Mike, thanks for coming on the show. Hopefully it won't be the last time. But
Jackson, you're the best, bro.
No, you are, bro. Anyways, remember, if you're not looking at the world through a gospel lens, you're only getting half the story. God bless you.